You are now listening to the Here for the Truth podcast, hosted by Joel Rafidi and Yerasimos.
What's up, everybody? This is the Here for the Truth podcast. I'm Joel Rafidi. I got my co-host Yerasimos. We just finished an incredible conversation with John Kai Herbert, focusing deep on the relationship between the body and the shadow and how symptoms of the shadow can present themselves in the physical map of the body. This is an incredible open conversation. And this is really information which everyone really needs to become aware of and, really begin to look at in our own lives. Right before we get into the episode of John, applications for Rise Above the Herd are filling up. However, there are a few spots left. So if you're looking to dive deep into really embodying who you are on a deep level, breaking free from the constraints of the crowd and stepping into, your authentic path in life, then head to riseabovetheherd.co. And once you apply, you'll be prompted to join a connection call with Yerasimos and I and really dive into how we can support you. So you can find more about that at riseabovetheherd.co. Much love to you all. Please enjoy this episode. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Here for the Truth podcast. Today we have a personal, amazing friend of mine, John Kai Herbert. He is a relationship consultant, born in England and raised in Australia. He has a passion and curiosity for the human condition. He's been observing human behavior for a lifetime. Through his journey, he trained in multiple disciplines and was mentored in somatic individuation, gaining a deeper understanding of the mind-body-spirit connection and its influence on relationships and behavior. As a new father to a son and partner to an incredible woman, John is passionate about creating community and a global relationship revolution. He draws on his personal and professional experiences to help individuals and couples build stronger, more fulfilling relationships with each other and themselves. With his warm and empathetic style, John inspires and guides his clients to explore their emotions, overcome challenges, and cultivate healthy habits that support exhilarating relationships and personal choice. His mission is to help people create meaningful connections and lead happier, more fulfilling lives, mastering what it means to be human. Damn, bro.
I love it. Welcome
Yeah,
to Here
man.
for the Truth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. This mad disclaimer there, that was not written by AI. That was written by me.
That's needed. That's needed these days,
Oh, disclaimers? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, totally. For those that are listening, as I mentioned earlier, John is a personal friend of mine. We lived in close proximity in my last few final months in New South Wales before I transitioned to Mexico, not to a woman. And he's just an absolute legend of a human being. John, the first thing I really want to get into, man, is just, as we always do here at Here for the Truth, I want to dive deep into your personal journey. What are your major rites of passage? What are the primary catalyzing moments that really transformed you?
Yeah, thank you, Joel. And thank you both for inviting me here. Like, I love this. I love your podcast. I love both of your energies. Like, even the pre-show convos, like super spicy and playful. This feels so human to me. It's like, yeah, this is life. We can have this life all the time. Yeah, my major rites of passage. Wow. So I might jump around a bit, might form a little bit of a constellation, a sky map of where we go. So my major one would have been an epiphany when I was in corporate. And I spent 17 years in the corporate industry, specifically in film and television. I didn't go to university, and I left my high school, spent a lot of time playing on the N64. I mastered 007, GoldenEye. I beat that bad boy.
Dude, that was my game, man. I memorized where everyone like showed up in the basement, man. 4 people licensed to kill basement was my jam in college, dude.
Golden gun.
Damn. I haven't played that in years. I haven't even thought about it in a while. So we don't need to talk about all your work and the conscious deep stuff. Let's just talk about strategies for GoldenEye, man. Like, that's it.
Proximity mines and remote mines. That's it. We're good.
I'd be Odd Job, bro. I was small. I would just go up to people sometimes and hit them just for fun.
We banned Odd Job. In the multiplayer game, no one was allowed to be Odd Job.
That's what we did too.
Hack.
That's what we did too. All right. That's amazing.
So I spent, after high school, I was like, cool, I'm just going to master 007. So I did that. And then I was like, I'd wake up, I'd like sit in front of the TV and like old CRT TVs. This is before LCD, right? Then with my shirt off, just playing N64 for all day. And then my mum started getting pissed off at me. So she said, John, go and live with your father. So I went and lived with my dad for a bit. And my dad pushed me to send out resumes of get a job. Come on, get a job, John. Go and do whatever it is you want to do. And I sent out a whole bunch of resumes to the film and TV industry, like advertising companies, people that did events. And it was hard. Like having to market myself was just a high school education.
Yeah.
And what I didn't mention was I'd spent about 4 or 5 years working at Hillsong.
Mm.
And I don't know if you know Hillsong, the evangelical church, who's actually got a really cool documentary right now called The Kingdom, I think it is. I'm talking about Hillsong and the Pentecostal church and all like that, the shadow of the Pentecostal church. And I used that as leverage. I was a camera operator, vision switcher, director. So their live stream stuff and their recorded content. I was like a teenager learning how to direct people on cameras and vision switch, like choose camera positions, like camera 2, stand by, come to camera 2, camera 4, come around the back, do this, wide shot, headshot, all that kind of stuff. I just love that shit.
GoldenEye prepared you for that, I think.
Dude, my whole gaming has set up my entire life. Like I was a real-time strategy buff from a long time ago. Total Annihilation, Sims, Empire Earth. Like my dad raised me on computer games. So he wanted to be a biologist, and he ended up getting into computers. Like he was at computers for the punch card days, where he brought home like a Spectrum Z3, like an old school Spectrum. He wrote games for me.
Wow.
Like a little fishing game, little shark game where you had like 4 guys that you had to get to the other side of they're all on surfboards, and you had to like get them to swim to the shore, and the shark would like randomly aim towards the guy that was heading to the shore. It was like Frogger, an early version of Frogger.
Yeah. That's incredible.
But then so much.
Well,
stuff.
I mean, video games get so much flack, but I will get into it later if maybe. But you know, I don't think it's all negative in terms of children playing video games. But yeah,
totally. No, I agree, Joel. And I think there's games that help, and then there's games that kind of keep you stuck. Like for me, I loved real-time strategy games like the diplomacy, like the 4X type games where like expand, conquer, exploit, those kind of games.
We've lost we've lost our entire female audience in the first 5 minutes of this podcast, but it's fine.
Dude, we'll get into some juicy stuff later.
I get into some heart opening, some emotions, some feelings, like how to attract the man of your dreams by not compromising yourself. Yeah, there you go. There's a good hook for later.
Right.
So, in the gaming world, so I think for me, knowing where to draw the line was I had some chronic health issues on this where my bone density dropped to someone of an 80-year-old. And that's a life. I'll come back to that one too. But I got stuck into World of Warcraft, and I sunk hundreds of hours into World of Warcraft until there was a point where I needed to get out of that world.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a moment where I was reading a book, and I thought, how many books are there? There must be millions of books. So I did a quick Google. How long would it take for me to read every book on earth? And I'm like, it'd take me thousands of years. I'm not going to live that long. Which took me, well, I want to live longer. And so if I want to live longer, well, who's doing longevity work right now? Who's doing all the science in longevity work? Which took me into the transhumanist movement. So I was looking at transhumanism. So how do I augment my body to live longer? And I got stuck into all that post-human type technology. And I went balls deep into like, I don't know if you heard of Zoltan Istvan. He wrote a book called The Transhumanist Wager. And it's a really fascinating book about people that want to transcend the human body, and then they're attacked by religion. And again, a lot of my work ties back into religion and people being conditioned to not express their sexuality authentically. And in that journey, I ended up going to a augmented reality meetup, and I met the woman of my dreams there at that moment in time. This is I've had many women of my dreams because my dreams keep changing. So it's a timeline. It's a timeline. You map that.
What happened to Hillsong, bro?
Oh yeah.
Hillsong. I left, bro. I ended up buying a combi with a mate and traveling a bit of Australia. But in that, I left Hillsong. I could just see it for what it was. At some point, they were going to offer us money. Dude, the money that would go through that place was insane. And I was working like a full-time employee, and doing great work. Like my work was prime, and they offered, well, John, you want to start getting paid for this? And a lot of people were offered the opportunity to be paid, and then we put in how much money we wanted to be paid, and then it's like, oh, we're not going to pay you. So I was like, oh, fuck this, I'm out of here. But doubling back to the
augmented reality. Yep.
What's that?
The augmented reality.
Going back to
yep.
Augmented reality. Thank you. The augmented reality. So she was doing the food at the event, and she was this dairy-free, naturally sweetened, gluten-free person who wrote a cookbook, referenced the 1500 journal studies, and about how you should eat well, the importance of certain types of nutrition, phytates, anti-nutrients, all this kind of stuff before it was like really mainstream. Anyway, I started a relationship with her, and that was diabolical, bro. Like that relationship, I quit my job to be with her. I thought I could piggyback off her dream of selling this book. I can find my pathway off the back of her life. She ended up getting chronically ill. She was already diagnosed with like a chronic fatigue syndrome, and then she got a further diagnosis of myalgic encephalomyelitis, which is the extreme version of chronic fatigue, and fibromyalgia as well. And I became her full-time carer for 3 years, like carrying her around and feeding her, needing to cook for her. We moved like 8 or 9 times over like 3 years, which was insane. But in that whole journey, I rediscovered the importance of the heart and the human body and emotions and feelings. And I also met my mentor, who taught me what I know about characterology and character analysis, like Wilhelm Reich's work, in that journey. So every single moment, I feel like I've been trusting myself at some degree. Something has taken me somewhere to compound on my journey to get where I'm at today. But as far as epiphanies go, and those key moments in life when I've gone, oh my God, my trajectory of my life has really changed. That relationship was one. I was going to go into politics around that time. I thought, fuck, how am I going to change the world? Go into politics. So I even approached a local MP if he could mentor me to how to be in politics. And he was like, yeah, John, I could do that, but you'd need to change parties. And I was with a party that I preferred. I didn't want to be with Labour. I want to change over. But anyway, in all of this journey, I discovered the importance of the body getting out of my head.
For the Americans, Labour in Australia is the left.
Gotcha.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. Yeah. The left. So in all that, I realized the importance of the body, learning how to read the body, learning that your childhood injuries can show up in your body in specific pelvic tilts and the way you move, the way you fill out a body. And there are a whole bunch of techniques to explore the personality, what's really there, what's underneath all of the lower self, like the part of you that wants to hide from the world, like your most carnal desires, your most primal instincts. And when I learned to see that for what it is, I could really embrace individuals for who they were and unpack and just release all this shame around the human condition. Those have been the pivotal moments. And then becoming a dad, that's another pivotal moment for me. Like 7-month old son. So yeah, I don't know. That
Congratulations.
sounds like
Bro, that was incredibly interesting. You gave us the pre-warning in the beginning that we're gonna skip around a constellation of ideas here. We definitely got it, man. But it's wild to think about from transhumanism to characterology as a contrast of one's journey. Um, yeah. So can we talk about, to begin this, like body psychotherapy in general, characterology in general, because still, even to this day, I find like the body is the missing piece when it comes to psychotherapy, when it comes to therapy in general. And most people do lack that understanding of how, the body in many ways is a biography of the psyche and what's taking place there.
Mm. Where to start? Wow,
Mm.
wow, wow. So
Maybe with Reich.
Wilhelm Reich.
Yeah.
Yeah, Reich. Yeah, great one. So old Reichy boy, good old Reichy. So Wilhelm Reich discovered in his practice that there was a pattern showing up with how people would appear and present. And he was curious about this. What's going on in these individuals that are exhibiting like schizophrenia, for example? He could see how they were, how they breathed, and how they moved in the world. And he could see that there was something called upward displacement, which is where how their most initial defense would be to go into their head. They would, like, you could see this, like there was a leaving of their body and going into their head. And what he realized, that when he massaged like the base of the neck, and particularly the base of the skull here, that he was able to reduce the symptom picture of schizophrenia. And on Reich's journey of psychotherapy, and not psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, psychoanalysis,
Psychoanalysis.
like that's the one, psychoanalysis. Like he was mates with Freud. He was Freud's prodigy at some point, and Freud didn't want to listen to him about the body because he wanted to think. He thought everything was the mind. And Freud, if you're familiar with Freud's work, obsessed with sexuality, like obsessed to a point of everything is sex. Everything, you want to fuck your mom or fuck your dad. There's something that's there, and Reich saw that there was a little bit of truth in this, and there was more.
Mhm.
So when he was in the Psychoanalytic Association, this is my mentor told me this, that they all voted against having Reich here, having this influence, because they could see a trajectory of psychoanalysis of just being the mind. So Reich went off on his own thing and just focused on the body. And Alexander Lowen came in and saw that Reich had something, because Alexander Lowen could also see there was something playing out in the body when people would present to him that they didn't know how to breathe properly. So Alexander Lowen developed a technique where he would bend people over like a roller or a chair to improve their chest capacity to breathe, usually over their diaphragm. And then further still, John Parakos worked with Alexander Lowen to develop the roller. And I think I took you on my roller at some point, Joel, on the mountain.
I've been on your roller in the mountain, correct?
Sounds kinky.
It was super kinky. In the woods, bro. Boys in the woods.
Yeah. It wasn't broke back.
It wasn't broke back. that's for the B reel.
Yeah.
So in that, Wright could see a pattern, 5 distinct patterns that would appear in people, and these are known as the oral type, the creator or the intuitive, the masochist or the humanitarian, the psychopath or the leader, and the rigid or the achiever. So when I refer to the pathological term like psychopath, these are purely, if you can detach the charge on the word and just treat it like a bumper sticker or like an orange, it makes it much easier to communicate. So also in that, what I was also educated to communicate was don't always use the pathology. So each one of these conditions has gifts. So the schizoid or the intuitive has intuitive gifts. They're able to connect to something that's much bigger than they are. Elon Musk has got this type. Russell Brand's got this type. And then the oral has got gifts in communication. So they can communicate really well. Russell Brand's one of these as well. The masochist, also known as the humanitarian, have a huge heart and also has, like the term, the masochist also has a penchant for self-sabotage. Then you've got psychopath, who is also the leader. So they've got an energy about them and a presence about them that can convince people very easily. They have a charm, they have a charisma that's very attractive, and they also have psychopathic traits to overpower people. And then the rigid or the achiever, they're the beings of the world who get the certification, they become the doctors, they become the lawyers. They're super rigid, very contained energetically, but there's a part of them that they lost. It's very challenging for them to have fun and live a joyful life because they grew up so fast. There's this whole section of their life that they missed. But in the context of characterology and why the body is the missing piece here, because psychology forked to just pursue the mind, this is why we have all the pharmaceuticals that we have now. So it's a brain imbalance, the brain chemical imbalance. Show me. Do the blood test. Show me where ADHD exists. Show me in the cells. Show me. So because there's, and if this is solid, this is known, this is an acknowledged thing that when you get a diagnosis, there's no blood test to prove it's purely clinical. And there's so many overlaps in the DSM diagnosis. It just depends on who you go to. One person could diagnose you with one thing, another person could diagnose you with something else. So the body piece, being able to see the body, for me in my work, I have a compassion container for when someone presents to me. I know what their injuries are, and I can prod at them in a way that's curious to expand on, what was your dad like? What was your mum like? What were your brothers like? What was your what do you remember your earliest memories of childhood? Was your birth scary? Were you bullied at school? What's your first relationship like? What was your first sexual experience like? And all of these questions can tease apart a map for me onto what the key issues would show up in that person's relationship and or their personal life with themselves.
Do you think, because you labeled was it 4 types or 5 types? Like, was that was created by Reich? And has there been like an evolution or more nuance within them? Because, very often you have a pioneer, but then things get built on from that.
Yeah, there are nuances. So there was the initial 5. We're born with all 5. And then what happens is they fragment into subsets. So you have within the rigid, the phallus in the male, particularly for the rigid, there's a phallic narcissistic male and there's a passive feminine male. And then in the woman, there's a hysterical female. And they've all got sub okay. characteristics. And then with the oral, there's an overcompensating oral. There's different types of psychopaths. So the psychopath is actually like a 10x of 2 types joined together. So you might have a psychopathic rigid and a masochist, a psychopathic oral and a schizoid. So there are subsets of those.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
So is it the like initial familial experience that determines one's characterology? Is that the primary driving force?
Yeah, it is. The first 7 years, you get the bulk of your character defined.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you hit puberty, there's another one that comes in. So you're more sexual, which is the rigid or the passive feminine or the hysterical comes in your puberty period. But yeah, it's the initial puberty period, the stages of development is where your characterology is defined. And it's surprisingly accurate. Like for me, I was talking to a mate who specializes in programming, and I said to him, "Bro, if you could devise an algorithm to identify a human's body and scan it, you could have a really good map of how to manipulate them and or how to access their childhood injuries, what their most common childhood injuries are.
When you say
And
injury, do you mean
Yeah.
all psychological in addition to actual potentially physical as well?
Great question. I refer to it as in the context of an instinct injury, so not physical.
Okay.
Actually, in that though, this schizoid type does tend to hurt their legs a lot.
Mhm.
So if you stub your toes or hit your feet, this schizoid type, because they're so upwardly displaced, they tend to forget what their lower limbs are doing. That's a pattern that shows up in every schizoid that I know. That they're always hitting their feet on things. It might sound weird and like, oh, but I hit my feet as well. But it's a legit. I see it as a pattern. But the context of the instinct injury is that I believe that, and this is a term that's derived from women who run with the wolves. Your instinctual nature is the most rawest version of you. And then as we grow up, this instinctual nature is conditioned out of us. So we ignore red flags in relationships. We don't touch on orange flags in relationships to get clarity on things. So our instinctual nature can guide us into various areas of life which are much, I see as much more exhilarating than what your mind can comprehend. Because our mind can only comprehend, I see, like 3 or 4 steps ahead. But the instinctual nature spans eons, it's timeless. So you don't know that having a conversation with this person at the coffee shop that you just want to have this conversation with could lead to something else or lead to another breadcrumb of a more fulfilling life.
Interesting.
What are you two doing?
Yeah, no. I'm thinking. I'm trying to think of the follow up to that.
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll get to it. Can we talk about in this whole context of Reich and body psychotherapy,
Yes.
bioenergetics, and I guess the Reich called was
Yep.
this what Reich called orgone energy?
Orgone. Yeah, so orgone. This is where I'm going to pull in some human design here. This is great.
Great.
So Reich, if you look at Reich's chart, he's all open head, right? And then Lowen is much more grounded. He's defined. So what I see in the relationship between Reich and Lowen was that Reich was always like in this ethereal world of like trying to bring things in and create this fantasy, like magic. And Lowen's like, ground this thing in. Reiki, baby. Let's pull this into the body. Let's make this grounded for people. In the context of orgone, my work didn't go into orgone. So Reich developed these boxes that you could put people in and heal them of their symptom picture. And and this is where he pissed off the FDA, because he was seeing people were getting better in these boxes. Like he had people diagnosed with cancer, and that they were being healed of the cancer, and he had all these documents saying that he could do all these things beyond what the typical medical establishment could do. But then what Lowen saw was that after a time, their symptom picture would come back. They would go back into, their symptoms would come back. So Rowan was like, there's something that's missing here. There's something in the body that needs to fundamentally change. You can't just put them in a magic box, shower them with some energy. If their home environment and their self-beliefs about themselves is still at the root cause of their illness or their disease. But then Reich also went on to like cloud buster technology, like where he had this device that could point at the clouds and create storms. And the blueprints are online, the free PDF if you want to go build your own cloud buster. But he created a technology that could make rain. He was very eccentric at a genius level, which when he fled Austria, I think it was in World War I or World War II, to escape the fascist regime, ended up coming to America, just a slightly different diplomatic fascist regime and had all of his documents burnt by the FDA, which was like an absolute crime. All of his work burnt because he didn't want to show up to a judge to challenge his FDA ruling. So there's this whole history, and not many people know that the FDA burnt his documents. Like they burnt his stuff, right? Because he was going against the medical establishment at that time.
Can you it's a word that you hear very often, especially in somatic work. We've touched upon it a little bit in some conversations we had, but can you just define the term armoring, what that is,
Yeah.
and how that impacts a person's, psychological state and personality?
Yeah, sure. So armoring, how I use it in my work, is when you have an instinctual impulse to do something and you're either shocked into not do a thing or you are hurt and you don't want to feel those feelings. There's a combination of musculature, which will appear over this particular area of the body, which it's usually the pelvis and the heart and the back, sometimes the lower back, where the muscular tension of suppressing that impulse appears on the body. So particularly for the rigid, they have a heart to pelvic split, and depending on whether the rigid can receive love from the back or give love from the front, there's muscular tension that can appear around here. And that's what I'd call armoring. And then if you're an oral, there can be armoring around the neck. If you're a schizoid, there can be armoring around the base of the skull. So all of these are somatic responses for a denial of your true self. And then when I've worked on people that I see who have these injuries and work on these specific body points, it allows the trauma to be felt through and re-experienced in a way without shame. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, definitely does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
What where's my question I was gonna ask? Oh, what role do you think pain plays in a body work context? Because there's so many different modalities, there's so many different opinions on how to operate with a client, and like, you shouldn't have any pain, but you should have some pain. Each client, do you work with someone individually based on what they can hold and contain? Like, I'm curious your views on that.
Yeah, that's a great question, Yerasimos. So when I was mentored in what I do, we took it to like excruciating pain. So much so that like, we would be screaming in agony to get to what was there. And usually underneath all of that agony was like grief and relief. So I think it really boils down to the container of who you're going to and what you set up. And then when I'm working with someone, particularly on their jaw, I'll give them the warning. I will say, I'm going to work on your jaw. It's going to hurt. I want you to stay locked into my eyes because I'm going to keep you grounded and take you into this place, which you may not remember where you've been that you've been here before, but this is like it's birth trauma or it's terror. And so in that context of pain, I think pain is incredibly important if you want to, because I think there's maintenance body work and then there's advanced body work where it's like, cool, I feel comfortable. That's great. I've got some hot rocks on me, a bit of and bubbling, whatever it is, the suction cuppy things, whatever that is.
Cupping. Yeah,
Cupping. That feels great. Cool. I've done some of that. There's someone's like massaged my body, but now let's do some work, which is painful. So into the calves, into the jaw, into the pelvis, screams. I encourage scream. If it's not being vocalized, then you're suppressing it. So when I'm doing one-on-one body work with someone, it's make a fucking noise. Don't hold this in. This is your life you're talking about. Make a noise. And there's people that will just, I can see they're holding in this scream of terror. Like, "Man, open your mouth. I know this hurts. Give it some volume." So in the context of pain, I think there's a place for it. And if you know how to go there, like if you've been trained how to go there, or in your journey of somatic body work, like you've mastered it to a degree that you know where to push and you know when to stop pushing. And it's a negotiation with the client of where it is that you need to go. Take the person to pain.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. Obviously, it depends on the relationship between you and the individual, depends on the state of their nervous system and what they can actually hold space for within themselves without completely checking out. But I think you hit the nail on the head that there's different types of body work. There's like, oh, I just want to kind of relax a little bit and, maybe get some regulation because I had a hard day at work. And then there's work that's going to like really support your transformation on a deep, deep level that's permanent. Because a lot of this stuff is like, it's maintenance, like you said. And then there's work that really gets to these levels of deep, deep tension and accumulated dense fascia and things that just allow energy and emotion to flow in a way that, like, when you're done with the experience, you almost come out, not almost, you come out of it like, whoa, I'm a different person.
Yeah.
I look at the world in a different way. And that's how, I was trained in a certain type of body work that was very geared towards, hey, let's get to the pain and let's be present with it. Now, if a person could not be present with it, would not vocalize, then you have to make some adjustments. But I think that, like, when you're able to experience pain and be with pain, there's a level of growth that happens that's just incredible.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. And it's permanent. Like you said, it's permanent. You do not, when you step through that threshold, you do not go back.
Yeah.
You're not the same person. Yeah.
No. You don't go back to the levels of, let's say, dysfunction or whatever was going on with you psychologically. Like, you may later on, let's say you stop doing the work, there might be little things that come in, but that core pattern, like, it shifts for good on some level.
Actually, I have seen regression in one type of person, and it's those that smoke pot.
Okay.
It's like, for some reason, when they smoke a lot of pot, they go back. I'm like, dude, what happened? Oh, I started smoking again. Bro, what?
Yeah.
Why? Why would you do that? It's super fat. It doesn't work on edibles, just on the smoking. I don't understand what the mechanism is that's there. But also tickling. I don't know if you found in your work with tickling. So when I used to do group work, I'm going to start that up again. There was particularly the psychopathic type and sometimes the masochistic type. Hate being tickled. So when I was just doing men's work, there was one particular guy that's springing to mind right now, and he would be so armored up when we do body work on him. Like, he would do jujitsu. He was a mad gym junkie. Like, this boy could, if he wanted to, could just put me in a headlock and pop my head off. Like, he was a big boy. Doing body work on him, and then at some point we were like, let's tickle him. So we had 5 guys hold him down and we tickled him. And he, like, the rage that came out of him was like surreal. Like, it pushed the board. You know when you hear screams and there's like there's another entity that's coming out of them right now in this scream. There was this, like, another thing that was coming out of him. And then underneath all of that screaming was grief, like just this grief of being tortured as a kid, right? And then his heart opened in a way that we couldn't open by just doing, like, getting my elbows in there and working his jaw. It's like, no, he needed to be tickled. Like, his humor defense of, like, making the life the bright side of life type defense was so strong that his will to survive through using humor was so strong, we needed to go into that through his body, which was tickling.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that, because I've had a lot of clients that when I'm doing the work on them, they start, like, laughing. And yet underneath the laughter is when, like, once they kind of allow that to come out, then the tears, then the anger, then some more deep things come to the surface. And it's been so interesting because you're like, they're at like a 9 pain level and they're giggling, they're laughing. And it's like this isn't a laughing matter. And yet it's almost like this journey that they have to go through that. And then this gold comes up from the surface.
Yes.
So hearing that, it's great to hear. And just for everyone that's listening, John's flying out to LA next week and we're having group tickling sessions. Joel's going to take part in as well.
Well, I don't know if you remember our sessions, John, but I was hysterical at points in terms of laughing.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. And in the world, when you're someone who's done somatic work, and for me, in the context of characterology, when I look through someone with the lens of characterology, the compassion for the defense is large, where I can look at someone and go, fuck, you're standing in front of me right now because of this defense. There's nothing wrong with how you've grown up, but you're alive right now because you've used humor and laughter as a defense. You've used self-deprecation as a defense. You've used the psychopathy as a defense. You've used going into your head as a defense to survive, to be here, to be in front of me right now, to connect. Yeah. And that level of compassion, I think, sets me apart from other, like the traditional talking therapy, where it's like you get a map, you get like an assessment of like a D21 or whatever it is, the depression checklist thing. Now, cool, you've ticked all these boxes. You have depression. Cool. Here's a pill. Here's this. Not look at exercise. Not look at their diet. Not look at their environment, and give someone a prescription for a way of life that's more deprecating, more dissolving of the individuality, like more like a homogenized version of what it means to be human, which I think is gross.
Brave New World.
Yeah, exactly. A Brave New World. It's frustrating for me in the context of qualifications, right? So someone asked me, "What's your qualifications, John?" I was like, "Fuck, I got mentored." There wasn't this thing where I was like, "Here's a certificate. Here's your AS, whatever that is, number that you do this thing." I was mentored through this, like 2 years, hours and hours, every weekend, being in group work, like doing like balls deep lower self work, shadow work, getting massaged, and then what I've learned is the people that have the who put the qualifications on a pedestal don't get the client breakthroughs. And then people are looking for a qualification before they pre-qualify me. Like, well, John, what's your qualification? Like, well, what do you see when you read my work? What do you see when you hear me speak? Do I have something for you? Does your intuition and your instinct tell you I have something for you? And I think that's the world that we could go to in the context of individuation, where you meet someone in the street and you go, "Oh, like Yerasimos, what the fuck is about you, bro? I like you. There's something in you. How can I be like you?" Or Joel, bro, how you speak, how you voice yourself, your vocal, your rapping. There's something in your words that just speak to me, bro. How can I be like you? What got you there? I think there's something in that connection which teases apart the qualifications versus the efficacy of where it is that you want to go.
Yeah, I think we're moving towards that more, man. I think people are like dropping this, like, well, how many letters do you have after a name? And are you a doctor? And it's like, well, no, are you effective? And are like all these people saying, yo, you got to go see John, man. They're not like, people don't show up to your door and be like, hey, my best friend who I trust with everything recommended to me, but I need to see the certificate on your wall. Where's the frame with the signatures and Roman numerals and who knows what else before I actually follow through for the session? Because it's true. It's like if you're a walking representation of your work, and I think this is what you find very often in more conventional models, is that people are just messengers and they're not embodying the message. They are not an embodiment of the message. They're not representing the work. And I think people who are tuned into a certain way, they feel that and they don't give a shit. Like they're just like, yo, when I have a session, like I feel better. My life's changing. I'm having new awarenesses. I'm relating to my partner differently. I'm relating to my kids differently. I don't care if there's a D and an R and a period before your name.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Not saying that like there aren't great people who've gone through that process who are also effective. I'm just saying it's not a requirement as we live in this world of information and mentorship, and you know what I mean?
Totally agree. There's a reading between the lines. Like I know for me, if I was going to get someone to build a house for me, I want to check to make sure, they have some construction skill. I think there's toolkits that qualifications are really good for, and then there's other toolkits that are not. Just not. Like if I look at like the mainstream nurses, like a lot of them are overweight. They don't eat well. Like when my kid, we went through mainstream hospital system to give birth to my son. That was a huge eye opener for me. Huge, where nurses overworked. They're eating like biscuits and things for lunch, not a proper meal, all ungrounded, all living in their heads, all quoting the same doctrine, all overweight. And all of these things, when I look through the lens of characterology, you're sick. You're not well. And how dare you? How dare you give me health advice when you can't take care of yourself? And I think there's a revolution / evolution coming here where people are seeing, and what came off the pandemic is what we're seeing here is these mainstream institutions have no idea what they're doing. This is everybody's recycling the same garbage and not grounded into themselves and bringing in what they think is incorrect for them and executing it. And there's no emperor's got no clothes. Like the veil is down, and now it's a perpetual. It's gonna more and more is gonna appear, especially with DeSantis. I did a podcast recently about DeSantis. Like he's a rigid psychopath, and for me, I look at his past. This dude's scary. Like what his connections with the military-industrial complex, and who he is as a character. I see another like a renewal of the Patriot Act in a new way that's even more terrifying. So there's things that are playing out here. Yeah.
It's just fascinating, like with your skill, being able to be like behind the veil of how someone would present traditionally to the public.
Real quickly, just so we can be clear for people listening that aren't as familiar with some of these terms. When you say character, you're approaching it too from even a physical type, like how they like present physically, posturally, etc.
Yes. Yep. Yes. When I talk to character, it's speaking to the technologies designed by Wilhelm Reich, Alexander Lowen, John Parakos, character analysis. So their character is how they present, they stand, they move, they speak, where there's fat deposits on their body, and also their past. Like I'll look at them as a kid and who they are today. And that gives me a good timeline of who they are. But mostly it's who they present in front of me right now.
Yeah. And fat, to be clear, is armoring as well, right?
That's another type of armoring. Yeah. And that's and in that, thank you for bringing that up, Joel.
You're welcome, John.
The masochistic type or the endurer type or the humanitarian type, these are all the larger body types, right? And this type is the most resistant to talk therapy. So they could spend decades talking to someone, doing CBT, and their body type they're stuck between being told to do something and telling someone no. So they're the most likely to self-sabotage. They won't understand why talking therapy doesn't work on them. And it's because there's a 3-year-old child that was terrorized by their mum, and in that they're not allowed to express their anger. So there's this pulling and pushing inside this person that's, I don't want to listen to this person, but I do need to take their advice. And between that, they can get stuck in talking therapy for decades. And if you double in an oral type in with that, they're the most entitled. So the oral type is what you'd see today as the modern, like the activist, right? The radical left. Yeah, right. So they've got an oral injury, and this is an injury that comes from the mother, where there's not a solid connection with the child when the child's first born. So the increase in cesareans, the increase in mothers not being supported by like strong masculine men, all of these things coincide with creating a child that ends up being entitled, which assumes that it's a demanding that the government or daddy authority or whoever it is needs to create a safe world for them. And they don't know what they really want. They just want to be safe, but it's an internal thing. It doesn't matter how many rules or legislations or what pronouns that you use or whatever it is to try and make you feel safe and validated. It's never enough for an oral. Never enough.
Yeah. If I mean, my interest in this work actually began by listening to Yerasimos 2.5 years ago on a podcast of Unslaved called Awakening Somatic Intelligence. And so it's so interesting coming full circle now for those listening. I'm actually living in Yerasimos' guest house with my family for a short period of time. And the initial reason I reached out to Yerasimos was to learn more about bodywork and ultimately get bodywork done by someone. And now we've had 2 sessions together while I've been here in Topanga, Los Angeles. And just witnessing, even for myself, like our first session, my pain levels as Yerasimos was romantically walking up and down my legs. I was at nines, man. I was at nines in the beginning, and even just like we had our second session today, and it's quite reduced quite significantly already, particularly in my hamstrings. And so this just begs the question for me: what is the relationship, John, between the body and the shadow? And can shadow work even be performed without addressing the body?
Oh, great question. Great question. And thank you for getting into his legs, Yerasimos. Thank you.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure. You
My
passed
pleasure.
them over. You passed them over across the world.
Just
it's a team. It's a
the
team
pun.
effort. Listen, with Joel, it's a team effort. All hands, all feet on deck. All right.
I'm all 5 types, bro.
Tag team. All right, John, I'm out. All right, cool. Let's get into.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, look, Joel, that's a great question. I feel like just sticking to shadow work intellectually, it'll get you so far. What happens is when an individual gets so overwhelmed by their environment or their thoughts, it defaults back to whatever the body's got in it. So when I do body work, it's predominantly about the lower self. So the lower self is the part of you that wants to kill people, will rape people, just wants to survive, and this is pure desire, pure hunger. It's like the most primal. It's like the juiciest part of what makes it, that the skin on nail on skin tearing of what it means to be human, right? And some of you that are listening to this will feel that right now as I said that. And that's the part that I want to work with, because that's the shadow that people don't want to have a look at, right? If I make the comparisons with Germany and what happened in World War II, all the Germans believed that Hitler was going to save them, right? And they're fully convinced. Like if you Goebbels is all of Hitler's right hand men loved Hitler. They loved him. Like this is when psychopathic rigids get into power. This is what happens. They loved him because they could see that he was going to create this vision for them of a German people that was strong. And when you don't own that monster inside of you, the shadow work is academic. Like if you don't own that in the right environment, you would torture people. If you look at Gitmo and Guantanamo Bay, they have all these soldiers, right, trained to be disciplined. They've got all these rules around the Geneva Convention, don't torture, all these things. You put them in the right environment. Same thing with like the Milgram experiment.
Yeah.
Great minds. I felt it. I knew you wanted to say it. you put them with someone in the right environment, that lower self will take over. That opportunity to destroy innocence or get in on someone will take over. And in that Gitmo space, DeSantis has been there. DeSantis has been in that part of the military. So for someone to appear altogether on the outside and calculating their lower self on the inside, it's a dangerous being. And then when someone doesn't want to own their darkness, this is beyond like shadow. This is their darkness. This is the part of you that will quite happily kill someone to get what you want if you could get away with it. Focusing on the love and light and doing shadow work by journaling about, I had this feeling about my ex-boss the other day. It's like, no, given the right environment, if you could choke your boss, would you do it? It's like, yeah, I would. So just own that there's a part of you that is still a survivor, that has billions of years of evolution, of survival built into you, that will survive at any cost, and you will do anything to get what you want.
Speaking my language, man, I agree with you totally. I think it's so important for people to get in touch with these these darker impulses, because if not, then you just project it outwards and go, well, they're all the dark evil doers. Not me. I would never do such a thing. I'm such a good person. I go to church. I'm a loving husband.
Totally. And this is why I see a lot of therapy, because a lot of therapy doesn't tip into this. This is why you get, like in Australia, it's quite common where you'll find that people out in the country will kill their entire families, or then people that look like they're all together will go kill themselves. This is the lower self. This is the death wish. This is the part of people that don't want to face that. It can be really, especially for a schizoid, it's really challenging for them to face the reality of being human. It's like, yeah, I'm in a body. Like, I need to take care of it. Like, it requires maintenance every day. I've got to find some way to be of purpose. I've got to carry a cross that I need to love carrying this cross, And in all of those things, it can really, if you don't know how to access that part of you or talk about it publicly, you feel wrong. You feel shame. There's something toxically shaming about you if you have all these impulses. And that's where you also see like pedophilia. You see all of these other sexual depravities that appear because deep down there's a part of you that's not being honored and owned in a clinical environment, of course. To expose the shame, to expose this is the part of humanity that doesn't get looked at, but it's there and it shows up. And then we're shocked when it shows up. This guy did this on the news. Oh my God, it's out of the ordinary. No, it's been there. It's been there for eons. So the more each individual owns this lower self, the more the base threshold of awareness of the shadow increases. So it's like, I can't think of the analogy right now, but the more you look at something, the more you own it, the freedom and the individuation that comes from that, the default base is much higher. So you have people that are more aware of themselves. You have people that are more honest and open and transparent in their communication. So if they're ideologically possessed by the church or radical left or conservatism or whatever it is, they can just speak to whatever their impulse is right now, including attraction, which is a huge one. So yeah, I'm attracted to you right now. Yeah, I'm not attracted to you right now. You're disgusting. I feel disgusted looking at you right now. Just being able to own the emotional response that's coming through your body and vocalize it without any charge on it sets people free.
Yeah. Dude, thanks for sharing all that. I'm really enjoying this conversation because like I said before, I feel like we speak a similar language. Do you think that some things in a person's given lifetime, some just won't change? Some won't heal. Like there's this idea like, no, but if I just do another bodywork session or if I just do that modality, like, are there just some things you mentioned earlier, like this is my cross to bear and I have to do it as best as I can while trying to, live a functional life, a fulfilling life, get into healthy relationships? Because I just think that there's so many people, the way people are experiencing the world these days relative to, like, let's say 100 years ago, the type of media that they're watching, the early trauma, the early exposure to like pornography, and then watching pornography for like 20, 30 years, like are there things that just, you're just going to have to deal with on some level? Like, you're just not going to evolve into this like perfect grounded person where every type is balanced within you and you have access to these parts of you and you're healthy. Like, I'm just curious, like, what are your thoughts on this whole subject?
Yeah. Thank you. What I hear is this attainment of perfection, and what perfection is for this person, for these individuals. And I don't think that there's a point where you can be perfect. Because as soon as you apply morality to anything, you're already gene key 18 to like, or gate 18 to like, it's got to be right or wrong. It's got to be right or wrong. So when you can love yourself for all of your imperfections and all of your impulses and all of your things, like, yeah, this is who I am. I've got this thought that keeps popping into me over and over again. And I think that there reaches a tipping point where this is where you might branch into medicines, like plant medicines or synthetics, where it's like, maybe there is something in this that I can go to. And we're talking about the evolution of consciousness as well as the individual's individuation and what they want in their life. I think if they're running from it in fear, you're not going to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Never. If you can embrace it with love and be like, you know what, I have these impulses towards chickens or whatever it is, and just own that, you know what, I just want to fuck a chicken every now and then. It's like, cool, but I'm not going to do it.
Joel,
Right?
have you been telling him our private conversations?
Be real.
Yeah. No, but I hear you, man. I hear you. Yeah.
Something in that, and it's like, yeah, cool. Like, because even in, my mentor said this to me, like in some parts of the world, like, guys would fuck goats.
Oh yeah.
Like, and it's a thing. So just like, and then gorillas, like in the Philippines or there's somewhere that they dress gorillas up in women in female costumes and have sex with gorillas. It's like
Donkeys
cool.
too. Donkeys. Like, I feel like in Brazil, I was watching something where like people go and they fuck the local donkey. Anyways.
Yeah. But it's important because this is a human condition, right? So when, as soon as you put like the moral higher ground, like, oh, fucking a donkey, how dare you? And it's like, okay, cool. But yeah, but there's a primal part of you that, given the right circumstance, if you were raised in Brazil, you take some medicine and go appear in that donkey world, sooner or later, that environment is going to turn you into a donkey fucker. Right? So there's being able to own that this is part of the human condition. And there's some parts of you that will be immutable, and there's some parts which are malleable to a degree. But if you run from it in fear, it's going to keep chasing you. It's attached to you.
Yeah. And I love this conversation happening, man, because anyone that knows me well, like, these are the things I love to engage in, like the depths of the human psyche, the imagination, like what a person thinks about in their private world. Because so many people just want to paint this picture of, no, look, I'm this like civilized human being, and I would never have these thoughts. I would never imagine pushing someone in front of a subway, or I would never imagine, you know what I mean? It's just like, and there's a difference between, and it's the person who doesn't acknowledge these things about them that are going to go into the post office with a machine gun and shoot everyone. The person who's like, yeah, I totally have a part of me that like wants to fuck a goat, or I have a part of me that like wants to push someone in front of a subway, or like my boss said this thing to me and I just imagine strangling him. Like, okay, I felt it. I'm not going to do it because I have enough awareness and consciousness that I don't want to end up in prison or on the front page of like, the New York Post. So it's just, again, it's like creating more awareness, creating an expansion within yourself to embrace all these different parts of you, and ultimately hope that you can make the conscious choice depending on the situation from a, let's say, a higher or a more evolved place,
Totally.
whatever that is, higher.
Totally. I don't get the higher is important. I think that in this context, this conversation of evolution of consciousness, the higher is important. To be able to get that somatic awareness around exactly what you're saying, fantasizing at pushing someone in a subway, getting away with something, whatever it is. And the same thing shows up when you're driving a car, right? Someone could be the most Zen, transcendental meditation, done 1,000 Vipassanas, they do yoga every day, they balance, they dot their chakras with rose oil every day, put them in a fucking Tesla, and oh my God, this car cut me off. This didn't fucking indicate. This motherfucker, it's straight away. Lower self. It's all there. Stop trying to bullshit. Just own that you're a fucking maniac.
Dude, I shared this in another podcast, like this exact example of like, you're just driving along, someone cuts you off, and it's like, I have to look at you first. And then I just gotta see your face, and then I'm gonna follow you home, and I'm gonna imagine your family watching me as I kill you, and like it lasts for like 20 seconds, and then you're fine, and then you go back to your daily life, like, oh, that's interesting. Where'd that come from? I'm not gonna do it, But so it's just funny, like I find this game of life to be interesting, and I think there needs to be like a seriousness, but also like a lightness to it. Yes. Like almost like where you can just be like, oh, well, look at that part of me just popped in. Anyways,
Totally.
that's my thoughts, my experience of it.
I agree.
Do you think like there's benefit to allowing yourself to go on these like imaginary mind adventures to expand that awareness when these parts are coming in?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I think there's the schizoid type in particular, not a good idea. The schizoid type, upward displaced, lives in their head, not much bodily awareness. They're the next plant medicine away from a psychotic break. So people that fantasize in this place, they're the ones that tend to act it out. Because they're a schizoid in particular, the schizoid injury, their grasp of reality is so fragile as it is that when they start, their lines between blurring reality and fantasy get really like messed up. Especially if they take LSD or psychedelics. Like there's a real risk of this person doing this thing. So
yeah, just curious how repression fits in this picture.
Yeah, great. So how repression fits in this picture is if you don't release the pressure valve of the shame of having the fantasy, either with a therapist or someone that is trustworthy, not someone that's going to fucking collude with you. Someone's going to trust you can express it and feel the feelings and not make it wrong, but also maybe apply some morality to it. Given the right environment, they will act it out.
Yeah.
It's an environmental thing. So the concept of a bad barrel and a bad apple, this is then Philip Zimbardi speaks about this, the bad barrel concept, where you can put a good apple in a bad barrel, and that that apple becomes just the bad barrel. So the same in the world, if you're suppressing this lower self, you put a person who thinks that they're a good person in a world where suppressing themselves. It's only a matter of time before there's the correct sequence of events occurs where that person will eventually act out that fantasy.
Yeah. I mean, again, we talked about the Milgram experience, but like the Stanford prison experiment, where it's just like, oh, I'm the officer, I'm not the prisoner. And then like they were blown away by what these actors, pretty much people taking part in the experiment, would do.
Totally. Even Milgram himself, just not be so being in the experiment, just being part of the experiment, not realizing that he thought he was separate, but in the experiment. Right? Just it's mind blowing. And Philip Zimbardi, I think he worked with Milgram on this. He's got a great book called The Time Paradox. And how we perceive time is how we also influenced by life. So someone, if I used an example of, he looked at suicide bombers, and they have a very highly geared transcendental future. So their afterlife is so much better than their present life that they would do anything to enact on killing themselves and killing a whole bunch of other people. So there's a balance of the spiritual component, the transcendental future, and your present life. How you see those and how those are ratioed influences how you perceive the world. And in the context of the body, someone who isn't in their body and is present to what's going on in their body can't really be present, because they might walk into a room, it might feel super cold. Oh my God, there's something that's wrong in this room. Like for me, the hyperdimensional work that I do, like if I feel that there's an entity or another presence in the room, I know it goes super cold. I know there's something else that's with us right now. We're in process. And having that somatic awareness of my body, I can detect what else is going on that the other person might not know. So the presence of the self allows such a knowing of the self. So I know where I finish and the other person begins. So if micro gestures where someone like flickers their eye, or there's something that's so tiny, I can take them deeper into themselves by asking them to, if this eye twitches, if their right eye twitches, I'll sit them, cover your left eye. What is it you're not telling me? And their eye will slightly glass over, like they'll start to tear up a little bit, and there'll be some profound truth that they're hiding, that they're suppressing in the eye that's twitching. Mm-hmm. So there's a somatic awareness when you're working with someone that allows a deeper understanding of themselves, but you've got to know where you finish. And that comes from the somatic work, the body work.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy, man?
My wife.
Go. No, go.
No, I was going to say my wife did her dissertation on this subject. I mean, she went to school for like depth psychology with emphasis on somatic studies, and she did her dissertation on the interrelational dynamics of touch, and she interviewed body workers, and just that whole idea of like, where do you begin, where the other person ends, like how are we connected, like it was really really fascinating and interesting to think about. But again, like you have to have that awareness within yourself first, when you're in contact with another person, what is that like? And then when you are in contact with another person, there's almost this new awareness that like this person becomes a part of you too, because you're connected to them. So yeah, anyways, Joel.
Thank you. I love that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Yerasimos.
No, what's crazy, like, is this work is so important, particularly like the deep, real body work. And when I first came across it, like, I was looking everywhere, particularly when I lived in Sydney, to try find someone to help facilitate this and try get to like the deeper armoring and the deeper shadow within the body. And it's just not accessible at all. Like it's so scarce, the number of people or individuals that are actually offering real, deep, profound body work for people to explore and access these deeper parts of themselves. It's super rare, man. It barely exists, particularly in Australia, at least.
Yeah, you spot on. So there was a few people that I was mentored with, and been doing it a lot longer than I have, but they don't have the confidence to be able to go out there and do the work. They're too afraid. And that's what pisses me off about it. There's people that have my ability and they're too afraid. They don't want to step out and take someone through these processes because they're afraid of taking someone to the edge of their terror. At trusting that they can touch somebody's body in a way that is painful and love them on the other side of it. So they revert to like sexology body work, which is also beneficial as well. But there's something in pain that is transcendental. Like they can get some, actually, the BDSM world can access some of these areas. I know one of my BDSM experiences was transcendental. Being tied up, half naked, and publicly humiliated by women.
Tell us more about that, John.
Yeah, sure.
So, no, but I think a lot of people play out their traumas, or even maybe can get some healing from it through these things that are considered more taboo. I'm not saying everyone does. I'm not saying everyone should go right now and get publicly humiliated. But there's reasons why people are drawn to certain things.
Totally. There is. I came off the back of a tantra retreat and did what's called a temple night, where it's a bit of a free form. You have specific areas of a room that are set up for activities like a cuddle puddle or a bit of massage or a bit of this. But there was one corner that was set up for bondage. And this humiliatrix came, and she had this like a stock, like a stock where you trap yourself like a wooden tool, wooden thing. And I was like, I want to get in that. You're going to put me in that. My intuitive response was, I need you to work on me in this thing. So she said, cool, pick 5 things that you want to use. So I had a rope, some other like instruments. She tied me up and she went to work on me, like whipping me and beating me, talking down to me. I could feel her energy. She was in control. She was a masochistic psychopath. she was in control. Like, she knew what she was doing. And at some point, she wandered off just out of earshot and started laughing and whispering my name to one of the other girls. I was blindfolded, whispering to one of the other girls in the corner. I went off. I was like, wanted to get out of this thing and kill her. I could just feel this rage of being, I was super vulnerable, like tied up, half naked, being laughed at by women. She knew at some level that me being laughed at by women was a trigger for me. And I went there and I could feel, I could just feel this palpable, I'm going to murder this woman. So I felt it. I went there. In this thing, trying to pull myself out of this horse, and then just laughed afterwards. I realized what I'd just been through and just laughed like a mad person. And that was a transcendental experience to me. Knowing that, I've had that experience. I know what this is now. So my relationship with public humiliation is very different. So when I do my socials, when I'm out in public, if I want to say something, I'll just say it, because I have a presence around, this is that public humiliation feeling again. It's like, cool, I'm going to say whatever. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. I'm going to say what I'm going to say. It's very empowering, but I needed to have the somatic embodiment of that to be able to stay present to myself when I'm experiencing like this subtle disassociation of people judging me. What are they going to say about me? Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, man.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, man, that's a great story. I'm loving this podcast, man. Like, I love your realness, John. I love your openness. It's, we talk to a lot of great people, man. But just to get someone who's willing to really go there and who really knows themselves on this level, it's really great to connect in this way.
Yeah.
So just to put it plain and simple and clear for those listening, is there a correlation between the level of one's pain in their body and the level of their unconscious or their shadow?
Yes. Yeah. Direct correlation. Yeah. So
can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Like,
yeah, sure. So somebody who is sore all the time, somebody who is rigid all the time, there's unfelt, suppressed or repressed pain, trauma, despair, devastation, terror in their body. And they could spend a lifetime on painkillers and going on fucking Bali retreats. But if they don't face it, if they don't go into the pain, they will live that out for the rest of their lives. They'll get a hunchback. It shows up in the body. It's how do I explain it? Through experience. I see it. I see it in my work. My mentors told me all about this. Alexander Lowen speaks about it, John Parakos, Reich. It's there. You cannot run from your body. The gravity, you are your body. There's no magical pill that's going to get you out of your body and your body's pain. You need to go through it.
Yeah, I agree, man. Personal experience and from work with my clients over the years, I can only say that when I went through a deep transformational process, I was going through these trainings you were talking about, like with working with a mentor and going through these workshops, like when I first had someone like step on me and walk on me, and I was like, I didn't even know, because it's like you don't know you have this pain until there's a certain amount of pressure. Because a lot of people, they go through their day to day, like, oh, my elbow doesn't hurt, my shoulder doesn't hurt, like, oh yeah, I'm fine. And then you just like touch their skin, and they're like, get the fuck off. Like, well, they just realize how painful it is. So like, there's so much pain stored in the body. And when I took my pain levels from when I started this more somatic focused process down to where it just felt like pressure and no pain, like my sense of self changed. The way I took in information through my senses and interacted with my environment and reacted to stimuli or whatever, someone saying something, getting an email, changed. Now, when I don't take care of myself, some of that stuff can come back. But generally speaking, like the level of pain that was in my body, 10 years ago to now, like it's so different. I mean, and how I think of myself and how I feel in a body is so different, man. So, and I think when you get the pain out and these things come up from the surface, you're more connected to different parts of you. There's just you're dealing with repression by getting pain out of your body. I have found.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. And then and then also in that, once you've got the pain out, being able to fill it with some joy and love and compassion and all that good stuff. Because in my mentorship, the reason I needed to leave was I could see it was going down a trajectory of it was all lower self work. It was all shadow. Like you're a piece of shit, basically. And people were in that work for 13 plus years. And you could see the toll it takes on the body when you don't fill it with love and compassion and excitement and adventure and joy. And being able to receive that, being able to receive the love and affection and touch, and being able to ask for touch and being able to receive it, like I think it's called the Betty something wheel of consent. Being able to receive love and ask for love is another form of the work, where once you've done all the pain work, you've got a huge container to receive this love and affection and attention. And then the next bit is asking for it and getting those really beautiful, loving massages from a partner or someone that you cherish as a body worker who just dances with your body in such a way that when you leave that room, it feels like you've been like fucked. Like it's just so beautiful. Like it's like, oh my God, like I've been touched so lovingly. Like she knew exactly where to go on my body. It was like she could feel me in a way that I want to be felt, right?
We live in a touch-starved culture, man. A
Totally.
touch-starved world.
Totally, and especially with the I think in the left obsession with consent. Sure, consent has a place, but there can be this instinctual nature of like wanting to touch someone and hold someone, like connect with someone. Like animals do it, babies do it, right? There's a touch that connection, and this is where the oral and schizoid injuries, the early childhood injuries, come from a lack of touch, both emotional and physical. And then when those aren't tended to, they play out in adulthood of being starved, this hunger of just looking for something outside of the self because no one's shown you how to lovingly touch yourself.
Yeah. I totally hear you there, man. I'm just curious, what between, I guess, trains of thought, what the fine line would be between boundaries and also being able to be open to receiving in such a way, particularly I guess in nervous system work, there's such an emphasis, on boundaries. And I guess many people lack that in many regards too, due to that consent being breached to the wrong degree.
Yeah, that's a really great question, Joel, and I haven't got an answer.
Yeah, no.
Like I think it really boils. This is a new world we're stepping into.
Totally.
Where we're learning how to connect to our bodies again and learning how to trust our instincts and our individual. This is what I want. This is what I want to express. This is me, and being able to own it in such a way that it's. I love me and I love you. And I love your boundaries. I love my boundaries. And if I'm touching you and you don't want it, just tell me. That's enough, John. No, I don't need that. Or do the shrug. It's being able to listen and be present. The rules will be recreated instead of this intellectual cat and mouse academic ways of being. You just embody who you are, and so much less need to speak, because there'll be so much communication that happens at that 95% unconscious level that people just trust. That's where I'd love to see us go.
And you have to go through it. You have to live it. You have to experiment with it. You have to be willing to maybe go over the boundary and learn a lesson and then experience healthy shame. You know, like, oh, wow, I shouldn't have done that. That wasn't right. All right. I violated someone, or, life is an experiment. You have to figure it out with your partner, with your friend, whatever the case may be. If you're on a date with someone, like there has to be that level of communication, whether it's verbal or just somatic communication that's going on. And people are going to fuck up,
Totally. And I've got a great example of that. When a few months ago, I was experimenting with how I could get my wares out there, being a coach and doing my thing. And I thought, I'll do I'll do a free characterology analysis to this woman. I've seen her on my socials. I can see I can help her. So basically, I did this Loom's like a recording program of her. I went into her socials. I did a characterology analysis of her life, of all of her pictures in her socials, and I sent it to her. And I was like, "This is going to be great. This will be perfect." Not wrong. Like all these violations of consent. And she attempted to publicly humiliate me. Like took photos of my stuff of my wall and put it on her wall. And I was like, "This is fascinating. I can be with all this." Like I knew I meant well, and I also knew instinctively that this is the edge I needed to push. Okay, cool. And I ended up apologizing to her and saying, "You know what? It's actually the equivalent of like a dick pic, like a coaching dick pic of like, this is what I can do, like flash it." But really deep down, it was that's not who I really want to be. But in that moment, that's who I needed to be, but that's not who I want to be. I trusted that too far. Come back. How can I do this in a way that's consenting and there's a loving way of doing it? So yeah, popped out at me when you mentioned that.
Yeah. And accountability is the key there. Like you're going to do a thing. Can you sit back, reflect, go, oh, you know what? Maybe I could have done something differently. And can I take ownership of my behavior and communicate that truthfully, not just like, oh, I'm just apologizing, but I don't really mean it. And then again, this is, I think, where healthy shame comes into play. Like
Totally.
to be able to feel that feeling of like, ooh, that's a little icky. Like maybe I shouldn't have done that. I could have sent a message. I could have communicated differently. And then hopefully you move forward in life and you don't, you do things differently next time. And that's part of life. That's part of awakening. That's part of evolving as a human being.
Totally. And I know we're almost coming to time, guys. Yerasimos, and I love that you mentioned that. Shame, the mechanism of shame and healthy shame, like John Bradshaw's work on toxic shame and shame, I think is really potent. Being able to, I think there's a school of thought that all shame is bad. It's like, no, actually, shame is correctative. And in the context of society and civilization and where we want to go, feeling shame is an important piece of is checking yourself. And then in the context of indifference, that when someone does all spiritual bypassing, doesn't want to feel anything, it's like, well, like shame's, but feel your feelings. Like it's okay to feel shame. Like, do you still want to be that person that either you're going to be cast out of the tribe or received by the tribe, depending on how you receive the shame? And I think in that, honest apologies can also be felt too. Like when someone's like really falls on that sword, and you can feel like a genuine, fuck that up.
Mm-hmm.
This person's going to be like corrective in their actions. So yeah.
And I find in relationship, when partners do this, really, it brings the relationship to a whole new level of connection.
Totally.
Like, because you're going to have a relationship with your partner and shit's going to happen. They're going to say something, you're going to say something. But then when the people come together afterwards, because what happens usually, you go off, maybe you withdraw, you reflect, oh, why did I do that? And then hopefully there's enough awareness and consciousness that come together. You take responsibility for your role in it. Very often the other person played a role too, and they're taking responsibility for it and truly apologizing for whatever, being insensitive, hurting your feelings, being disrespectful. And then there's like this new level of like, oh, wow, like feeling safe. I trust this person. I can, and then life goes on.
Exactly.
Until the next time that there might be an experience. And then how do you repair that experience?
Totally.
But accountability has to be there.
Yes, it has to be there. It has to be there. I think the vision of the relationship is a real anchor for that. It's like, cool, I want to live with you. I want to spend time with you. What's this going to cost me if I don't apologize to this? The rupture, like resentment, like whatever else. I don't want that. Like if I'm going to live with you under the same roof, I want to feel connected with you. I know that I can walk past you and still grab you on your ass because I like that. There's something in the connection that I want to have because it's a co-regulation. So if you don't know how to co-regulate by repairing or having those hard conversations or the accountability, like the relationship has a trajectory of like it's going to be painful. It's going to be a pain that's going to dysregulate your nervous system, indigestion, who knows what else, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a real balance there in that accountability piece that makes integrity and accountability like two hot pockets that I'd love to see more of in the world.
Huge.
For sure,
yeah,
man.
I mean, well, I'm happy you brought up that point. I think we want to probably have you back on to get deeper into relationships. I mean, I know this conversation we focused on tickling and BDSM, but I think the next one we can dive into relationships in a different way. No, for sure, man. But anyways, I just love this conversation so much. I love meeting you for the first time. Like, really appreciate this, man. I hope to meet you in person at some point.
Yeah.
I love that too, Yerasimos. Yes.
This is definitely one of those classic If the Truth episodes. I feel I got one final question for you. Just again, I feel like I'm, tapping into what people might want to know here. But like when someone is doing this deep body work and there's real authentic shadow work taking place, do memories have to be associated with the healing process?
No.
Yeah.
No. It sometimes there can be, and the memory is part of the map of how your body needs to integrate it. But if getting attached to trying to find a memory can be exhausting.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just the expression of the feeling, because your central nervous system might want to process the memory and feel the feelings at the same time. So when you can just let go and connect to the raw primal response of what's there for you, that's where all the freedom lies. So yes, memories can appear, and it's not necessary for the deep work.
Yep. John, man, so much love and respect for you, bro. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing this beautiful 90 minutes with us. Please talk to our audience about what you're up to, what you're offering, and how they can connect with you should they feel inspired after this conversation.
Yeah, if you feel inspired, jump to my socials, Google me, johnkaiherbert.com. I'm on all the things, Snapchat, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. And what I'm up to, like if you're someone who wants to become the most individual version of yourself and then approach your relationships from that point of view, then by all means, like reach out. If there's some wisdom that you want, if there's something that you heard, John, I had this question for you. Just ask me the question. If you're thinking it, I guarantee everybody else in your life is thinking it. So just reach out. Just trust your heart, step into that, and become who you really want to be.
Amazing, man.
Love it.
Guys, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Take care. Freaking love that conversation, man.
Dude, such a great conversation, man. I loved it. I love what he's all about. And it's just an invitation too for everyone like listening. Like, really have to go deep in yourself if you really want to create the life that you want to create. And, we've mentioned it before, but Joel and I have our 8-week group coaching program, Rise Above the Herd. And it is a deep dive into really understanding yourself, what's keeping you from being the person you want to be. It's like, you got to cut out the bullshit in your life if you want to stand in your truth and create the life of your dreams. And, we think that we've created an awesome program. This is our 6th time running it. So if you want to apply to it, we have a couple weeks left until we launch. Go to riseabovetheherd.co, fill out an application, jump on a call with us, and let us know what's going on for you. And we'll see if we're a right fit.
Well said, man. Take care, everyone.
Smoking mirrors, I'm seeing through the illusion. Waking up in a time, they think you're in a delusion. Somebody set the alarms, cause they be too busy snoozing. I'm in a DeLorean, fast forward in evolution to a place where we can share our confusions. Yeah, 450 BC, I'm sharing tea with confusion.